Welcome back to the Masters Swimming podcast, available on all podcast platforms that are major, so like Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We are back with a part 2 of our women's health in swimming, and I'm hosting, so it's me, Beth Hogg, and I'm joined by some fantastic ladies, 3 of whom need absolutely no introduction because we have spoken to them before. So we have Dr. Kathy Munro. She is a specialist and volunteers at a menopause clinic for COVID. We have Julie Hoyle, who we've had a couple of weeks ago speaking about swimming, also a fantastic record holder. And then she needs no introduction. We have Kath Tunnicliffe. But we also have someone new. So I am delighted to also be joined by Jo Corben. So Jo is a swimmer, and she swam at a national level as a teenager and then got back into it after having a baby. She has backstroke British, European and world records over several age groups, which is absolutely amazing. And she dabbles in medley sometimes. Over lockdown, she has formed South Downs Trojan Swimming Club, which now has 55 members. That's absolutely incredible. And also, since 2005, she's run a swim school with a business partner with 750 swimmers. Is that right? That's amazing.
That is right. Yeah.
Wow. We are not worthy. And I must say that I am actually, being a backstroker myself, I am joined by backstroking royalty here. So this is like my dream. So this is really good. So obviously this episode is going to be focused around the menopause and what happens when you get older as a woman. And these ladies all have different experiences of that. Obviously the first episode was more kind of towards like younger women and what every woman has gone through with like periods. So we're here to do a specialist episode because I feel like, especially with masters swimming, it's something that's definitely not talked about enough. So Dr. Kathy, can you give us a little rundown or a little introduction about like what is the menopause and what kind of happens in your body when you kind of go through that, and like at what ages you go through each stage and stuff like that? Because I have no idea because I'm 25. Sorry.
Okay, well, the menopause is basically when you've had no periods for 12 months. And obviously that makes it hard to know until you've had 12 months with no period. The average age in the UK is about 51, but you can go through the menopause at any age. And in fact, 1 in 1,000 women go through the menopause under 30. Wow. If you go through the menopause under 40, it's called premature ovarian insufficiency, and about 1 in 100 women go through the menopause early. And then you've got this period pre-menopause called perimenopause, where actually you can have some of the most significant symptoms. So lots of symptoms of menopause, and it's a time when your ovaries aren't working as well, aren't responding as well to your hormones, and then your hormones really, really fluctuate. So you can actually have big surges, and particularly if you're sensitive to the hormones, then you can end up with lots of menopausal symptoms. So that's a kind of brief piece on it. Menopause can happen suddenly if you go through a surgical menopause, or if you have treatment for some forms of cancer. If you have radiation therapy or chemotherapy, again, you can have menopause early. And if you suddenly lose your ovaries for one of those reasons, again, your symptoms can be pretty significant. And anyone that's going through surgical menopause, unless they're of menopausal age, really should replace the hormones, because there are lots of consequences for not having hormones, which can really affect your health later on in life.
Wow. I didn't realize there's so many like different like issues to deal with in different like parts of menopause. I guess I'm ignorant for now. So like so I guess there's like lots of different symptoms. So I don't know if you just want to like start us off, Jo, like what has kind of your experience been with, and your experience is obviously your own experience. Every listener who listens to this will have their own experiences. So I just wonder if we have like a different, so if you feel comfortable, Jo, like what have you kind of gone through, like, and how has your training kind of been affected and stuff?
Okay. I didn't realise that it was happening to me. In fact, I was in denial. It wasn't going to happen to me.
Wow.
I was just going to breeze through it, and it was going to be absolutely fine, and it was all a myth. So I didn't really realise what was happening. It sort of started to happen through the second lockdown. During the first lockdown, I did lots of running, did lots of gym, and tried to stay fit. And then the second lockdown happened, and all of a sudden the running that I had been doing, which had only been not too long beforehand, just suddenly dropped off a cliff edge. I had nothing. I had no endurance. My fitness was just shocking when it shouldn't have been. I hadn't done anything to make it worse. And I could not understand what was going on. So I thought, well, maybe it's just running. Maybe, it's just not for me. And then it wasn't until the beginning of last year that I started swimming in competitions, and the year started okay, and then throughout training, and then during probably from February through to June, my times just took a massive nosedive for no reason. I just could not put my finger on it. I had been training the same, I'd been doing the same sort of training. My times in training were awful. It was as if I'd just jumped off a cliff and splattered at the bottom. It was terrible. And I was so depressed about that. But also, again, I didn't realise until looking back that I was really suffering hugely from anxiety and just really low self-esteem. And I felt as if the word that I use is insignificant. I just felt as if I was irrelevant, as if I didn't matter, as if I had been wiped off the face of the earth. And it was only really through talking to friends of mine who are a similar age, one friend in particular who's 1 year older, who had been through or was going through it all. And she was like, I think probably you need to go and see the doctor and speak about HRT. And I was like, no, it can't be that, because I am still now having periods. I'm still having periods. Leading up to that, my periods became really, really, really irregular. So I had really heavy period for about 6 weeks. I bled as if I was dying. And then I had nothing for a couple of months. And then I just bled continuously in dribs and drabs. So looking back, I thought, yeah, I think I probably am going to have to just bite the bullet and accept it is happening to me. And I'm not made of titanium. So after long course nationals last year, I went to see my doctor with a huge list of symptoms. And I started to read them to her, and she said, yeah, you definitely are prime candidate for HRT. So I started on HRT at the end of June last year. It wasn't a miracle cure. It didn't change things overnight, but with research and just trying to educate myself, and with the help of the HRT, I feel like I am much more in control than I was. It's not perfect, and I have good days, good weeks, and then bad days or bad weeks. But what I have learned is just to try and take the good stuff when it happens and just try and ignore the bad stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds really
horrendous.
Really tough. I would say, I think the first word that comes to my mind is awful, but it's not awful. It's we shouldn't say it's awful, because it's obviously a process that all women have to go through. And I think kind of just putting it in a box and being awful box is probably not the most productive way to do it. What about you, Kath? How was your...
Okay. Well, Jo's really hit many of the points I wanted to make, many of them. Because I think that the fact that it's so common that you don't realise that it's beginning to happen to you, and that you, what can I say? You just, I don't know what kind of causes the denial issue, but I know I had that. So even though, things were starting to go very bleak in my life, I didn't look towards an obvious thing. So I don't think we can overstate that enough, that even though we know all we do, you get to a point and something's starting to happen to you, but you don't link the two. You know, a very common thing to be happening to somebody at whatever stage in their life. I actually, the way I do describe what happened to me is the world turned black and white. So my life, everything was without joy. And you know me well enough, and a number of you do, and I'm hopefully a very happy, contented person.
Yes.
But honestly, it went black and white. And I think one of the other things that Jo said, and I'm going to reiterate with my story as well, is that, you know, I spoke to a friend. I just said, look, the world's gone black and white. And it was her who said, you know, why don't you pop along to the doctor? There might be something not right here. And again, within this kind of bubble that you're in, where you just can't see the wood for the trees, I think is the best way to describe it. You can't see the obvious thing that may well be happening to you, you know, speaking up and explaining to your best mates or family members, whatever, that you're not feeling right. You just don't feel yourself. I think it's a really important emotion to talk about. And yes, help's there. And it's your body is, I mean, I'm not the medical expert, obviously. Your body's screaming really for a lack of the components that it's been having, and you're not working properly, but you don't get it that's happened to you. And again, the other thing that I have to say resonated with me is this feeling that you disappeared, really, you've become a nobody. And I think the other thing that, like, I felt like that. I felt I disappeared from society, and I also felt that the best of my life was over. Now, I can go on, and I'll probably do this a bit later, to say a little bit about how swimming helped me. And I'm going to say I was in a pit and was part of the solution for my life. But we'll maybe hit that one later. But it's really lovely that Jo introduced so many of the things that I can reiterate, and were very much personal, parts of my personal experience. And I can also promise, and I'm happy to do that in a minute, that it's far from over.
Yeah.
In fact, it may well have only just begun. So we'll get back to that.
Yeah. And what about you, Julie? Do you have any similarities or differences with Jo and Kath? Or?
Well, yeah, both really. I mean, certainly a lot of the things, you know, that you both said, and that feeling of lack of confidence and anxiety, but I didn't even realize that was a menopausal symptom. But especially in my work, I felt lack of confidence in that I felt I had to be ultra over prepared all the time. But it sounds like, certainly for you, Jo, almost like it happened quite quickly. And for me, it feels like it's been going on forever. I think I was about 42. And I just kept thinking, why is my body hurting so much? And it was this body pain that I had to start with. And I went to the doctors, and she kind of went, oh, you're just getting older, you know, but never mentioned menopause. Wow. And my sister and my mum had both sailed through menopause. It was not something we ever talked about. So, and at 42, I didn't really think about that. And I went back to the doctor again. I said, but this can't be normal. I'm just hurting so much all the time. And eventually, when I was about 45, she mentioned perimenopause. But I've never had any kind of test. And I'm not a Googler, really, of symptoms. So again, I didn't really quite get it. I think now I would say to somebody, you need to get, you know, maybe get a blood test and see where you're at. And then when I got to about 48, it was the doctor who actually said, you know, you're just having such a bad time with it. You really need to go on HRT. And I think, like Jo, you know, it wasn't a miracle cure, but it definitely helped. And then what I've found since is almost like my body gets used to it, and I've got to change it and try a different kind or a different way of taking it. And what I'm taking now, I've only been on for just over a year. So even at sort of almost 60, I was changing it. And it's still very up and down, but it feels like it's been going on forever. And I think probably there's lots of symptoms. I guess you're probably going to come to symptoms, are you? Right, I'll save that then.
Yeah, so everyone's like experience sounds like there's a lot of similarities, but also like a lot of differences in like the time that it goes on, and I guess it's all like down to the individual. And yeah, we did a quick survey, but we had like 3 main groups of symptoms. So obviously like a loss of strength and performance in the pool and in the gym, and just generally. And then I didn't realize how much of like a mental struggle it was as well. Obviously it's hormonal, it makes perfect sense now, but yeah, a lot of people wrote in and said mood, like lack of motivation and confidence. And I find it like astonishing that something like that can make, you 3 amazing swimmers like feel so like small and so like kind of isolated. So it's obviously like really serious.
I still find it really emotional. Just when people talk about it, because I kind of wish people had talked to me about it 15 years ago. And I find it quite, listening to you two, I found that quite emotional listening to it. And I watched that Davina McCall program and I just cried all the way through it.
But then one of the symptoms that came up as like one of the pretty much the main one was like tiredness and like waking up in the night and poor sleep. And I don't know if any of you experienced that, but a lot of people were writing in saying they were like really struggling to like stay asleep as well. So I don't know if anyone's had experience of that. And what makes you wake up in the night? Do you know that, Dr. Kathy? I'm calling you Dr. Kathy. Dr. Kathy. Dr. Kathy.
I think that's one of the biggest questions for me is the sleep's been horrendous. And I can go to sleep, but I can't stay asleep. So I've been awake since 3 o'clock today because that's normal almost. And that is a big question for me. Have you got an answer?
It is complicated because sleep does change as we get older. I did want to say a couple of things. First of all, menopause is a normal life event, so it's important we don't medicalise it, but there is something you can do, as in hormone replacement therapy is one answer, but it's not a complete answer and it's not for everybody. And also, Jo, I'd be worried you're really anemic.
I probably was.
I think that
probably was.
Might have been part of it. So on the sleep, so if people are having symptoms like hot flushes and night sweats, and that can massively disturb sleep and contribute to sleeplessness. And I also think sometimes with the low mood and the worry and so on, again, and you can have depression caused by or in addition to menopause, and again, early morning waking can be part of that. And it's really important to have a chat with the GP about all of the symptoms, and sometimes a low dose of an antidepressant can be helpful with the mood and the sleep. And it's not necessarily a treatment for depression; it's on a much lower dose, but that can really help. It's just. I mean, the progesterone hormone helps you fall asleep. It's interesting saying you're going to sleep, and exercise helps you fall asleep. I had massive sleep issues myself, I think partly because of menopause and partly because of the job I was doing. So my main job was actually an A&E doctor, and then my menopause and the lack of knowledge made me go and get some training, and I worked in a specialist menopause clinic and then began doing that at the same time. And I had loss of confidence and all the things that you guys mentioned, and it was just really hard and really isolating, even in medicine, to not have enough people talking about it back then. In terms of sleep, I think having a routine, getting some early morning sunlight. I mean, that one advantage for me about early morning training is I can go down, and now the day's a bit longer, actually get some sunshine in the morning on the way in as well as on the way back from training, and that can help set your circadian rhythm, and that can help you keep asleep. And I didn't used to get to sleep or stay asleep, but I wake up, but I go to sleep relatively quickly now, which is really good. But I am on HRT, and I am on both estrogen and progesterone, and the progesterone bit you take in the evening, and that can say help you fall asleep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've jumped about a bit. I don't know whether I've answered.
Oh no, that's absolutely fine. So like my next question for like all four of you, I reckon, is just how has it impacted your training and competition schedule? And I guess my question would be kind of, is it very like irregular how the symptoms impact you in training and competition? Because obviously when you have like a period, it's kind of roughly around every 28 days, so it's cyclical, you can kind of prepare for it. Can you prepare for menopause symptoms? I guess not really. Or do they kind of come and go like irregularly? And what kind of how has that impacted your like racing and stuff like that? I will start with you, Kath.
Right, I don't think I can add to that question because,
okay,
well, the reason being that I went through a major kind of turn in my life around the time of perimenopause, and really swimming became one of the answers, to be honest, because I'd had a career in swimming like as a kid up until 16, and then I'd had 30 years away, and I played a bit of field hockey, and it was becoming a bit, the age difference between me and the right wing was just enormous, and I decided that it was perhaps not as fun as it ought to be. So I'd given that up, and I guess, I went into this very perimenopause. All the symptoms were there, weren't they? But I had to I had to find a way out of the hole I was in, the very deep hole. But obviously, medical help was, I went on HRT, and that was there to assist me. And really swimming became one of the answers. And it was such a reluctant choice to go back and start a master's swimming program, if you like. And yes, I was getting into the second part of my 40s when I did it. But yeah, proved to be absolutely the answer to gradually, and it didn't happen overnight. It was quite a crawl. But yeah, it became the solution, as opposed to where a lot of the other people might be able to talk, which is obviously swimming through it. I'm not able to talk about that because mine came as a benefit, really, and particularly a confidence building and self-esteem. My self-esteem, I can see how much that's built as a result of swimming. I can really see how my self-esteem has been improved almost year on year. So yeah, I'll pass it over.
Oh, that's really good, because it's nice to have like a positive experience of like swimming in the menopause. So what about you, Julie? How has it impacted like your training and your racing?
I think sometimes it's really a positive thing, because once you get swimming, even if you're tired, you can sort of warm into it, and it just makes you feel so much better. There are times when I'm so tired and I haven't got any energy, and I don't know if that's partly because I'm getting very little sleep, and I can kind of manage on 4 or 5 hours for about 4 or 5 days, and then I just can't cope anymore, and I can't manage to swim properly then. I think if I go to a competition and I'm just tired, I'm okay, I can overcome it. But I do get something, and I think it's hormonal, not medical, I don't know. I call it the sleeping sickness. So I don't sleep well, and I haven't slept well for years. And then 2 or 3 times a year, I get this sleeping sickness where I just sleep so much. I'll sleep 8 hours and feel absolutely terrible for it. I've got absolutely no energy. And the minute I go to the pool, I go, oh no. And I can't do anything in the pool. But the minute it goes, it's gone. And I'm fine again. So like last year, for about 10 days before nationals, I felt terrible. I was sleeping like mad. I was feeling awful. I was trying to get in the pool. I couldn't even do 50 meters. It was awful. And I kept saying, if it goes away, I'll be okay. I was really worried because I had some big relays we were looking forward to, and I didn't want to let anybody down. And I have swam in competitions like 5 or 6 times. And I just felt terrible. And I couldn't feeling like that before, and all I can do is manage the swim. I can't go for it. I've just got to manage the swim, and I know it'll be mediocre, but that's okay. I know that. And actually, before Nationals last year, I was sitting on the Thursday feeling terrible, and then about 4:20, I remember going, "Oh, I think my eyes are opening." And by 9 o'clock, I said to my husband, "I'm really frightened to say it, but I think I'm feeling better." I went to bed, I had 4 hours sleep, and then I had the most amazing weekend of swimming. So I can only think that's a hormonal thing, but I can't control it. I can't do anything about it when it's like that. But on the whole, I think swimming helps.
Yeah.
Because I think once you get your endorphins going, and you do feel better for it, even though you'll feel tired afterwards.
Yeah. What about you, Jo? Is it more of a positive or a negative?
I just continue no matter how I feel. I just bash myself over the head with it until I come out the other side. That's it. That's all I can say, really.
Okay. I mean, it's one way to tackle it, isn't it?
Yeah, I just continue. I've had a series of probably weeks where my body just says, "Oh, I can't do any more," and I'm just completely exhausted, and I'll have to miss a Wednesday morning or something. But it does that sort of, I don't know, once every 3 months maybe. But yeah, I just keep going, really, because I just think, what's the alternative? I'm not going to just curl up and give in.
And you do feel better for doing it.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just keep going. And if I'm at a competition, I've just learned through the last year, really, to go with the highs and not beat yourself up too much about the lows.
Yeah.
She says it's not true.
No one can ever be 100% positive at any age, I feel. Sometimes you have to sulk and moan for a bit.
Absolutely.
It's definitely
bobble throwing is.
But I think having the understanding of what's happening helps you deal with whatever way it goes. And I think for a long time I didn't have that.
No, I think once you think, well, actually, there might be a reason why.
Yeah.
It is easier to swallow.
It's easier, it's easier to deal with and kind of just kind of drop it and pass on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of, it's nice that, as I said before, like that swimming is kind of does have generally a positive impact on it. So one of the questions in our survey is also kind of what has helped people as they've gone through menopause. So like obviously the top answer was hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. So I have no idea about what this all entails, or if there's one size fits all or lots of different things. So Kathy, could you give us a little explanation? Sorry, I'm giving you exam questions again.
No, so I can answer these. So HRT, there's not one size that fits all. There's lots of different forms of HRT, and it needs to be an individual discussion with your doctor, whoever manages menopause in your GP practice. Estrogen is the key hormone, and estrogen, I think it's been obvious from the discussions we've had, gets everywhere, your brain, every cell in the body, and that's why when you don't have anywhere near the amount you had before, obviously you really feel it. We now realise that estrogen that's delivered through the skin is probably the safest form of estrogen, and that can be a patch or a gel, and I think there are sprays actually. Because it goes through the skin, it doesn't get changed by the liver, and the pill does get metabolized by the liver and can increase the risk of clotting, whereas if you have it in the skin, it doesn't. If you have a womb, and in a few other instances, such as if you've got endometriosis, you need to have progesterone as well, and you can have that either with a form of coil that gives out progesterone, or there's a tablet called which does nice progesterone, utrogestan, which is like the estrogen that's given now, a body identical, and they're chemically exactly the same as the hormones that your body produces. If you've had your ovaries removed, you don't produce testosterone anymore, whereas if you've still got your ovaries, even though you've gone through menopause, you still produce testosterone. And just about for swimmers, even if you're really young and have gone through menopause, you're not allowed to be on testosterone, even though your body would naturally produce some. So so that could be an issue. And I haven't done any really big competitions, but I'm assuming there's drug testing and so on. And obviously testosterone is a banned substance. But in terms of its use as a hormone replacement therapy, it's only licensed for a low sex drive. There's been a lot in the press more recently about how great it is, but there's actually not a huge amount of evidence for it. So the mainstay is estrogen plus minus progesterone, depending on whether you still have a womb. And you need the progesterone to stop the lining over thickening and then causing something called endometrial cancer. So that's why you need it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also, while we're on the topic, I know we've got a little bit of time for questions later, but someone wrote in and actually said, what would you recommend if someone can't take HRT for some reason or another? What would be kind of the answer there? Would it be just lifestyle changes? Sorry, there's an ambulance in the background.
I can't hear it.
It sound great tomorrow.
Yeah, and not everyone wants hormone replacement therapy, so it might be you don't want to take it, as well as reasons why you can't take it. I mean, for a lot of women, you know, if you haven't got enough hormone, then actually replacing the hormone, you know, in terms of treating a lack of estrogen, the best thing is to have estrogen. But lifestyle changes should go along with it and can be really good without it. And exercise is a key part of that. Eating well, so ideally cooking food yourself from scratch, avoiding highly processed food and so on can be helpful. And there are different things people can try. The problem with a lot of the herbal remedies is that they're not regulated properly, and you might not know what you want. So this black cohorse is quite popular, but it can be toxic in some situations, so you need to be careful. So I think it's about thinking about your diet. Loads of things can be really helpful. So green vegetables, nuts, seeds are all really good. Eating a whole range of fruit and vegetables are good. Maybe some soy products and so on. But I think eating well, eating lots of colours, eating the rainbow, all of that can be good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, go on, Kath.
I wonder if I can pop in now with a specific question for Kathy. I just wonder if you'd be able to comment on the role of weight training, particularly weight bearing, in the post-menopausal stage. I'm particularly thinking of the osteoporosis issue, and I'm also thinking of the possibility of retaining, fast twitch muscles through something like a weight-bearing activity program. So I'd be interested to hear your views.
So, I mean, that's the one problem with swimming, is it's not against gravity. Obviously, it allows us to carry on swimming much, much longer. But actually, it's absolutely vital that women do weight training, lift some weights. Or, I mean, you don't have to lift weights. You can do star jumps and burpees and all of those fun things. But if you can either get in the gym or do a routine at home, it's really, 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 really important, and you have to do it against load. I mean, that's why running and walking is better than cycling. Cycling is better than swimming in terms of load bearing, muscle retaining some power. It's really important, because otherwise we lose muscle mass as well. But in terms of osteoporosis, I mean, you can lose, fairly quickly. You can lose 10% of your bone density. There are non-hormonal treatments. So there's something called tibolone, which you can be. So if you are suffering from osteoporosis and you can't take HRT, there are options. Again, you need to have a chat with your with your GP. And there's one other bit which I don't know whether we're okay to talk about. You've kind of reminded me, because lack of estrogen affects the quality of tissues, and bone density is one of them. It also can affect the tissues in and around the vagina and your bladder and your urethra, and they can get thin and dry, and the pH can change, and you can be much more prone to urinary tract infections, and people can be really sick with that. And virtually every woman can have estrogen applied locally. There's very, very few contraindications. Some women who are being treated with hormone suppressors with breast cancer probably can't, but occasionally they can as well. But that's something which, it's 3 years after you've had your last period, you start getting something that's called urogenital atrophy, which isn't a great of words, but you get sore, you get uncomfortable, you get risk of infections, and even if you don't want to or can't take HRT, that is definitely something you should chat with your doctor about, and it's brilliant, and you can now buy it over the counter.
Yeah.
Is that all right for me to carry on? Because I do think that there were, I came into this with two specific areas that I'd love to hear Kathy's views on. So the second one is, I think we're entering slight controversy now, is the stopping taking HRT, because I'm under the impression, I have stopped taking it myself, and but I am aware that it the thought of stopping it can be daunting, and I'm also aware through reading that sports people particularly will potentially want to continue with HRT because of the benefits that it clearly can bring them. So Kathy, it'd be really interesting to know what your view on is long-term HRT usage beyond the time when menopause might have reasonably be expected to have completed its cycle.
Yeah, I mean, again, symptoms can come back whenever you stop, and some people's symptoms would carry on for a very long time. There is no definite you must not take HRT at this point, unless you have obviously something like a breast cancer or an endometrial cancer. The risks are the longer you take HRT, it does increase your risk of being diagnosed with breast cancer. It doesn't seem to increase your risk of dying with breast cancer, and the feeling is that maybe the HRT just speeds up the process and you get diagnosed a little bit earlier. The cancer often takes 15-20 years to develop, and the HRT can accelerate it. So unless there's something happens, you don't have to stop. It's probably sensible to reduce the doses a little bit as you get older. I'm 60 and I've currently got no intention of stopping HRT. The important thing is that you've started it early enough and close enough, and under 60, in terms of the benefits then outweighing the risks. So you don't have to stop. You just need to have some annual checks, keep your blood pressure okay, and make sure you see your doctor and have a proper review every year. You should examine your breasts regularly, we should all be doing that in any case, whether we're on HRT or not. And the other thing is, if you have any new bleeding at all after you've gone through the menopause, that can be a red flag, and that can be a sign of a cancer of the lining of the womb. Or if you bleed when you're passing urine, any of those things, just go and see a GP and get that checked out.
Great. And yeah, I guess when Kath's saying a lot of people kind of want to keep having hormone replacement therapy, maybe some people would take it for longer to maybe perform better in sports. And I guess that is quite a controversial topic that hopefully when we discuss menopause, we discuss that and get everything out in the open. I guess, would that be more to do with the testosterone that you can get
Yeah, I mean, I think,
yeah, hormones.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, testosterone isn't routinely prescribed as part of HRT, and I mean, I think that's not allowed in competition at any point. I say there's one case when it should be allowed, and that's people who've gone through menopause early, and surgical menopause early. But I mean, I think if HRT makes you feel better and enables you to train, you know, and you know all the benefits continue to outweigh the risks, then I think it's fine to carry on. So
that's really good.
Right.
And then yeah, thank you so much. And also just for full circle for kind of treatments and helps, a lot of people wrote in obviously about hormone replacement therapy, but other things that came up were like a high protein diet, like more individualized training plans. Vitamin B6 has helped a couple of people, and then like less sugar, refined sugar, and low alcohol, which is less fun, but I guess those healthy lifestyle changes as well. So I guess we just have a little bit of time for some questions. So one of the questions is, and I think I'll ask for like all of your kind of quick little minute of input on this, is that like, have you adjusted your training intensity since you've been perimenopausal or menopausal? So Jo, do you want to pick up?
I have been very meticulous and religious about strength training.
Yeah.
So I've always done some gym work, but since June last year, I have religiously gone into the gym. We're lucky to have a gym in our back garden that my lovely husband built me. So I use the gym 3 times a week, and I have changed completely what I do in there. It's much more about small chunks, but lifting weight, basically. Yeah. So I'm not in there for hours and hours and hours. I'm in there for probably 30 minutes to 40 minutes. But I am lifting heavier weights now than I did in my 30s. Yeah. And I've just carried on swim training. I do 6 sessions a week. But I have to say that I have changed up my swim training a little bit, so I don't bash myself over the head with as much distance and endurance as I used to do, purely because I'm rubbish at it now. I am just, I cannot do 5 or 6 400s freestyle at a decent pace anymore. I'm absolutely pants. So I do shorter swims, fast. So it's higher intensity but shorter distance. Basically, that's my quick sound bite.
Nice. What about you, Julie?
No, not really. I haven't really changed much. But when I did the podcast with Jo a few weeks ago, I did say I don't do any strength and conditioning. And I know I should for my health and well-being, not necessarily for my swimming. So since then, I have started doing a little bit. They've got a thing at David Lloyd where we swim now called eGym, where they basically, you have a wristband and you log into each machine. It adjusts it does a strength test with you, and it adjusts the machine to fit you and with the right weight. Gives you 20 reps to do. And then you just do a little circuit of it. So I tend to do 2 circuits. Haven't done it for a few weeks, just 3 or 4 weeks as I haven't been feeling very well. But went yesterday and it changed it up, and it did it negatively. So instead of weight up, it was weight down.
Okay.
So it does change it up a little bit. Not been doing it very long. But I'm thinking it might just get me started if I can get there and do it, and then maybe I can do something maybe like you, Jo, and maybe do less but higher weights as I get. So, but in terms of since it all started, I haven't really done anything, no, and I should have.
What about you, Kath? I know that you're very into strength training.
Yeah, you've got it. Yeah, because one of the things that I was remembering was that when this was first discussed between a number of the people on this panel, they were looking at world records or best times, as it were, and they were seeing the decline. You should take a look at strength decline and in normal women. Because it starts to really impact that, and you can do something about it, because getting into the gym and doing appropriate sessions is you're going to bank against that. You're putting money in your own personal account, and you really are. So it's kind of a no-brainer. And I think, although Kathy's obviously the expert, but this is the life I live. But I think if you combine that with what you're going to do in the pool, which is cardiovascular, then my golly, have you got a combination which I don't think science is saying anything other than you're right on the way to. Obviously, Kathy's mentioned great diet, sleep well. I'm not going to join the alcohol too much, because I'm not the best character on that one. But put it together and you will get the best aging components you possibly can, and strength training is massive in that. Massive. I'll leave it there.
Great, that's fab. Another one is actually quite important, and I think this will be really important, but obviously for like everyone, and kind of also like younger generation, like premenopausal women, is there anything we can do? I say me as a 25-year-old, is there anything that I can do, like when I get into my 30s and 40s, that will help with like preparing for it? Kathy, do you want to start? Is there anything that like you could recommend, or do you just have to take it when it comes?
I mean, there are things you have control over and things you don't. In terms of early menopause is more likely if you smoke, and I don't imagine there are many masters swimmers who do that. There's also things like family history. If you have kids, your menopause is likely to be a little bit later. Breastfeeding is a good thing. So how much control you have over all of those things is debatable. But I think it does astound me in how many people just lack any form of responsibility for their health. Whereas when I have been on this podcast and the one before, how incredible it is, these women that just really get in there and train hard and lift weights and do it. But that's what we need to do. We need to be responsible for our health. If you want to have a healthy life, 80 plus, you have to work. You have to get your heart rate up. And even the government recommended guidelines, I think, are a bit pathetic. If we actually want to be responsible for health, we just, we have to get there. Have a day off a week, but actually you've got to get your heart rate up. You should be able to maybe do a bit of high intensity training. I mean, in the pool that can be sprinting. You should, be able to either lift some weights or, do some star jumps or, whatever. And we need to work harder, and that's what you need to do. Otherwise, are you going to be, barely able to get out of a chair and shuffle from room to room? Is that the old age you want, or do you want to get in there? And I mean, my hope is I live long enough that I could eventually maybe break a national record, because I've kept healthy. I think it's the only way it's ever going to happen with me. But yeah.
Someone in my club says that's war of attrition. She's really
that's the one I'm fighting. Yeah.
That's great. Is there anything that like Jo or Kath or Judy you want to say, like what do you think?
I think educate yourself.
I totally agree.
Absolutely, educate yourself, be prepared, and just research. Don't go into it blind, because it is going to happen.
Yeah, because I didn't, and I'm thinking it's nearly 20 years since this. I really wish I'd known more, but I think there's a lot more about it now, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely.
Talked about, and I think that's the big thing. Like for you, Beth, is just to know,
Yeah,
be aware. And
absolutely. And I think the more that people talk about it and actually don't make it, just it is going to happen.
Yeah,
you can be in denial like I was, but it is going to happen. And it might be okay, it might not be, but just educate yourself, be prepared, be fit and healthy, and don't take it lying down. You don't have to. There is stuff that you can do.
Yeah. And I would say go to good sources of information. The British Menopause Society are very good, and they have lots of pointers to other people. There are some celebrities, some of whom give really good advice, but they're not medical and they don't always know the best. And so yeah, get yourself educated, but try and get good resources on it. I meant to say earlier, someone mentioned blood tests. Blood tests are really useful in women under 40 to 45. You can have very normal looking hormonal levels, but still actually have a problem. There isn't a simple blood test when you're of menopausal age that says, this is definitely perimenopausal, this is menopausal. But have a list of symptoms. Go to your GP. Find the person at the practice who is interested in women's health and interested in menopause, and they should be able to help you. And if they can't, then say who can. So
brilliant. And Kath was like putting her hand up and like leaning
over.
I loved Kathy's answer about the we need to participate in our own outcomes and by creating a healthy lifestyle. I love that, and I'm such a fan of that philosophy. It really coincides with how I hope I live my life. And I think also, to go back to your original question about Beth, you saying, you nowhere near, what can you do? Just every age is an age that you need to, you're living through and you're in. And this one will sort itself out. I mean, I'm postmenopausal now, and it's a great time, and I don't want, I'm hoping that there's a positivity, and there's lots and lots of people who will say it's so much more relaxed to be this side of the whole business, and there's lots of things you don't have to worry about anymore. I mean, I still get my night sweats, and I don't mind. It's just a natural part of my life. But there's not much else that's happening that could be a menopausal symptom. But I'm obviously just one person, and lots of different variety of things. So just take each age, and it's okay, and be the best version of yourself. And there we go.
Yeah, it's great advice. It's so nice to hear. And then we had like one other kind of comment is that someone wrote in and kind of just wanted to know like positive examples of women swimming well on the other side and through it. And I think as much as like we could ask that, I think we have like 4 brilliant examples here. I mean, you 4 have done extremely well, and no one's known your stories until now, and you're all like brilliant athletes and women, and I think that's like enough evidence that you can get through it. And I feel really grateful to have like done this episode with you 4, and it's just been like really, really lovely. So I think we're just about to run out of time, but that was such a good conversation. I really, really enjoyed that. I learned so much. I felt like I was getting like a really good like pep talk and a lecture at the same time, and I really hope that all our other listeners like feel that as well. I know we had such a good response to episode 1, so hopefully we'll have a great response. I mean, I just remember like in the words of like someone that I swim with, Vicky, she was like, why didn't anyone tell me this earlier? And it was just like, it was really good. And I really hope that we can help so many women and men as well, just to educate them of what we're all going through. I just think that's so.
I think I don't want to, it's almost like we've been talking about the problems, and obviously, there can be some really hard times with it, but I hope it hasn't been too negative, because I think like all 4 of us, we've clearly had good times in sport throughout it as well, haven't we?
Definitely.
It's not like it's every moment. It's just we've been talking about those particular times, haven't we?
Yeah.
So don't be frightened.
Yeah. I mean, it's natural, it's normal, but it's not all doom and gloom. And you can. I think if you know about it and you're in control, then things can be much better. But I keep on swimming. That's definitely my happy place.
Swimming.
I think swimming saves you, doesn't it? Throughout everything in life, it kind of saves you, doesn't it?
Oh, that's so fab. Well, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. I keep saying it. It's just amazing. I literally love doing these so much. I can't wait to see Kath at Staffordshire. I can't wait to see, hopefully.
I'm going to.
Are you? Yay!
Yeah.
Yay! And I can't wait to meet all of you, hopefully at Nationals.
Yeah.
Nationals. I'm literally going to come and like hug you all and go just probably cry a lot and get emotional.
I'm the only one from my club, so so I definitely glad I've got some mates now.
Well, that's great. So this was fantastic. And hopefully see you all again soon.
Definitely.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.